supporting you in your dog parenting journey. The Dynamic Dog Owner with Debbie Potter. Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Dynamic Dog Owner, the podcast designed to support you, the dog parent, in your dog parenting journey, because we all know having a dog is not as easy as we first thought. There's a lot more to it and a lot more emotional connection than I think any of us ever imagine, especially if you're a first-time dog owner. So today's topic, we're going to be talking again about recall. We've covered recall quite a few times on the podcast, all different aspects and angles, and today we're going to look at the steps to off-lead. So it's not just a simple case of unclip the lead, off they go. There are stages we can go through to help us build the confidence in ourselves and teach our dogs how to be confident off lead. So we're going to talk about those steps today. Now, obviously, first things first, this is not a quick fix. It is not going to magically work just following these few tips that I give you, but it is going to help. So take it as part of your training journey, not just a how-to guide. First things first, the one piece of equipment that I swear by, I think every single person should have one and use one, is a long line. It is the key to success with your recall. Because if you haven't got one, your dog is free to make their own choices without consequence. So, for example, if your dog sees a bird they want to chase, off lead, they can make that choice and go and have fun and chase the bird. It gets reinforced. On a long line, they have the freedom to feel like they could do that. But if they think about making the wrong choice, let's chase the bird, there's something there to stop them following through with that task, getting the reinforcement from chasing the bird. They have to be cut short in their thoughts and they have to refocus on you. Therefore, you are strengthening a new habit to refocus on you if you would like to chase something. Obviously, it's a safety net for young puppies if you're not sure what they're going to do yet. A long line is an essential. So first, the beginning of these stages, use a long line because it will help you. It will help your dog to learn what you would like them to do. Second thing we're going to do is build a strong association with their recall cue. So we have to teach them what their recall word means. They do not come pre-programmed knowing that the word here or come or 3 pips on the whistle means come back to me. We have to teach that. And it's one of those things that is, when you think about it, of course they don't just know it, but we assume they're going to. So we have to spend time teaching it, building up the association with this word or this whistle sound means great stuff happens here. Come back and get some. And obviously we can use that and reinforce it as much as we possibly can so that the word itself is strong. Obviously, we've talked previously on a podcast before about the different things and different aspects of recall in terms of like emotions, knowing their cue, etc. This links with that, but it's not a replacement for. So listen to that episode 2 because it will give you a different spin on it. But obviously we do want to build up that recall cue so that if we need it, it works. Now, we shouldn't overuse it. And again, we talked about that in the previous episode. Don't overuse it, but train it. Every time you say it, make sure your dog has a wicked consequence with you to build up that association. On a separate note, we're going to reward voluntary check-ins. So what do I mean by that? When your dog chooses to engage with you. So if, for example, you're walking along and your dog looks up at you, you can mark and reward that. If you are in a fenced field, so you haven't got to worry about a lead, for example, and your dog chooses to come over and say, hi, how are you? You can mark and reward that. So we're rewarding their choice to engage with us. Now, naturally, that means they're going to want to do it more often. So we're tackling 2 kind of sides of the coin. If coming back to you doesn't produce anything, why do they want to do it? This isn't necessarily about controlling, but it's about encouraging and rewarding choice as well as having that recall cue that makes them do it. But reward every time they come back to you, especially in the young stages. When they're puppies, when they're engaging with you, reward it. Have fun with it. Every time you come back to me, something good happens, whether that be a treat, a fuss, a toy. Therefore, they're going to, corny saying, what gets treated gets repeated. They're going to do that more often. So if every time they look at you, every time they come back to you, every time they engage with you through choice, something great happens, want to keep making that choice. Then the next stage is to take that into, obviously we talked about doing that in a fence field. Then we take it into a busier location on our long line. So go to the local park. When it's relatively quiet, keep them on the long line and then reward the check-ins. They're likely to be harder and few and far between because there's so many other distractions and you're in a new place. But because we've practiced it loads in the fence field, it's already got a history of working. Therefore, once they kind of cotton onto it and go, this works here too, they will start to re-engage with you. Then we can obviously mix up the distractions. So, you could do it in a busy park, you could do it in a open space, you could do it in a woodland where there are more smells. You've got the long line there, not to control them, but to give them freedom. So personally, there's lots of different ways to manage a long line, so many different ways. Personally, I like to make sure that if I'm in a big open space, I give them the full length of it. I hold the end and it's just there. So they feel like they're off lead. They've got the freedom to move at whichever pace they choose, as long as it's in the length of the lead. But I'm not holding them back with it, if that makes sense. That way they will feel off lead. We can reward any check-ins, any engagement they have with us. Then every now and again, we can recall them. I would say your recall cue is saved for when you know it's going to work. So for example, if they're busy sniffing, don't say it. It's unlikely to work. Wait till they've finished, until they're about to focus on you, and then say it. Or wait till they're already coming towards you and then say it. But the voluntary check-ins are the important one. Because if every time they finish a sniff, they look up at you and you go, yay, good choice, what are they going to do when they've finished being distracted? Look up at you. So it becomes an automatic to always check back in with you. Obviously not quite the same around dogs because we want them to go and interact with it, but with smells and things, they can interact with them. And then when they're finished, be done and come and look up at us. So then you've got a dog who is obviously comfortable being on a long line. He's able to check in with you, not just when it's just you and them, but when there's distractions too. Then we've got that task of getting rid of the long line, which can take a little bit of time. And there's a multitude of ways to do this. There's two different ways that I find most popular with people. One is to just drop the lead, which kind of sort of seems a little bit scary at the start. But if you're not holding on to it, they have the choice to go further. They're not going to reach the end of their lead and feel that tension that then is a cue to come back to you. So they're going to be free to go a little bit further. Do they still make the right choices? So do they still connect back with you? And the likelihood, because you've worked so heavily on your check-ins, is that they're going to say yes, of course, and they're going to come back to you a little bit quicker. That kind of tells you then that it's not the lead that's helping them to check in. They're doing it through themselves. But you've got the security of just being able to pick that lead up anytime you choose. So I like it for if I can see where I am. So I can see all my spaces around me. I can let the note go of the long line. I can let it trail along behind them. But if I see a distraction enter into the environment, it's really easy for me to just pick that lead up. And if I go, I'm not sure if you're going to make the right choice here. So for example, with Fred, he's still not great at distractions because he's still young and he's just a little bit unmotivated. He always has been. He's so much better, but he's a bit impulsive. So I like to keep him on a long line and leave it trailing unless he's kind of proved to me he can't, which we'll kind of get onto. So it gives you that security. So if I'm on a beach, for example, in Norfolk, and I'm heading there very soon in a couple of months' time, so I'm very excited, I will start off with leaving that lead trailing. And then if, for example, I see a family having a picnic and I go, is he going to make the right choice here? Not sure. I can just pick the lead up. If I see an excitable dog chasing a ball far enough away that he's not interested but could be interested, I just pick up the lead. So then it's dropped again. But he generally always shows me he can make the right choice. I just lack confidence in him just now because he's still young and he's still not shown me exactly what I'd like to see from him. So we've got that option then of picking up the lead and dropping the lead, picking up the lead and dropping the lead. So you've still got the safety blanket of having the lead. It's just you're giving them a little bit more freedom. Obviously, it's easier to grab hold of. If you've ever tried to grab hold of a dog, so say, for example, your dog is off lead, you've unclipped that lead, they've gone off for a run around, and then they're a little bit excited, whatever, you need to try and grab hold of them. How difficult is that? Because every time you go to put a hand in, they jump out because naturally we go to grab, they go, I don't want you to grab me. They know how to evade us. If you've got a long line attached, you can just step on it. You've got more chance of grabbing that or stepping on it to then trying to grab your actual dog who's like, don't come near me, because generally that becomes a game. So it's a little bit easier to get hold of them and get their focus back on you. Then it's time to actually unclip that lead completely. But there is a transition we can do. And this comes down to personal preference. A lot of people find that trailing the lead versus unclipping it altogether are like two completely different, and it seems like a really final kind of step, which I completely get because you're taking away your safety net altogether. So you've got two options. One, you can just go for it, unclip the lead, bish bash bosh. The other option is that you can cut your long line. Shock horror. Buy two. Buy a cheap one and buy a nice one. The cheap one, you can gradually start to reduce the length of. So if you've bought like a fabric one that's, relatively cheap, it's not like one that's high quality, you're not going to mind cutting it up. If it's 5 meters long and you leave it trailing, naturally your dog feels that drag. So they still have an element of there's something holding me back. So this is a way of transitioning from off lead completely on lead, and having that long line drag to off lead completely. So if you've got 5 meters and you have dropped the lead and you're thinking, I need to do this, you can focus on me, I need to make that next step, cut your long line, shorten it by 1 meter. The drag of the lead is less. So it's a transition. You've still got something to grab hold of them with, but there's just less of it. And then, of course, your confidence grows when they've cracked the 4 meters and you're like, God, this is easy. They do it all the time. Cut it again, make it 3 meters. So each time the drag and the feeling of the lead is becoming less for your dog. So it's a gradual shift, a gradual change. Your confidence is growing, but you've still got that little bit of a safety net. And you can keep cutting it, and eventually unclip it. Now, when it comes to unclipping, we don't just unclip it and go, off you pop, have fun. Great. Love, have a nice time. We have to I do a little safety check. So my little safety check, which I probably have mentioned on the podcast before, is always, scan my surroundings. What's around? Is there anything in that I can see that is going to be a distraction for him or likely to become a distraction for him? Do I think he's going to cope? Do I think he's going to manage it? If the answer is no, I don't let him off lead. I also check how focused my dog is on that day, because days change, right? One day they're really focused, the next day they're away with the fairies. We want to check that. So are they engaging easily on the long line first? Do you have rewards for them? Is it safe? Like, those kind of questions. If you can go, yep, all good, then I would unclip the lead for a really short period of time. Now, it doesn't have to be like 10 minutes. Unclip it, let them do what they're doing, recall them back to you a few times, reward some check-ins. While it's going really well, clip that lead back on. So you're trialing it for like 30 seconds or a minute or two at a time, rather than just going, right, they're off lead now, let's see what happens. You can then put them back on the lead and have a little bit of refocus. You can then unclip the lead again, let them off a little bit, and then clip it back on and have a little more refocus. So you're testing the water in short, sharp bursts of time, rather than off lead, on lead being a complete switch and a complete change. You're sort of easing them into it, if you like, because that way you're not just going, fuck it, let's see what happens. You're helping them out. If obviously you see something enter the environment that you go, not sure about this, you can clip it back on. And each day, each situation, each place is going to be completely different. But that's kind of like my steps to go through. It's not going to work every single day. Every day you might swap and stop at number, I don't know, the third thing on the list. And then go, right, today, this is all we're going to get today. Or in this location, we're going to take it back a notch. But just think, use your long line, build your queue, reward the check-ins, leave your long line trailing, then cut it down or drop it, pick it back up, and then build up to unclipping it altogether. Now, the unclipping part is really important. And again, we've probably talked about it before, but hey, nothing bad with a little recap. The clipping of the lead is often a cue, because generally speaking, scenario, you arrive at the park, your dog's really excited. They know they go off lead here. They're like, wow, really excited. You hold on to their collar and they're like, it's coming. I'm going to go off. I'm going to be off. I'm going to go. They get excited. They're pulling. There's tension. You unclip the lead. You let go and off they pop. So unclipping the lead, inadvertently, we can create as a cue to be, go have some fun. It's freedom. And you unclip that lead and off they go, having a lovely whale of a time. Obviously, they then associate lead off, independence, do what I want. Lead on, boring. I get to have to sit with you. So We can change that up a little bit and say, actually, when your lead unclips, I'm really cool. I'm really excited. That's when all the fun starts. That's when you get treats. That's when I might get your toy out. We talk more, we engage more. And it's actually a cue for pay attention to me. Now, I've done this with Rem a bit too much because he forms very, very strong habits very, very quickly. You'll have heard me talk about him before. I unclip the lead. He spins around going, Mum, what are we going to do? I'm like, we're just out for a walk. He's like, what do you mean? What are we going to do? And as soon as I unclip the lead, he's 110% focused on me because he thinks we're going to have some fun. And I almost have to then turn that off and go, no, you can just go for a walk. So you can have two sides of the coin. You can have too much of too much freedom and then almost too much association. Rem forms very strong associations very quickly. So that is why he has created that. And now I'm having to kind of just go, no, doesn't always mean fun. But it's lovely that you're focusing on me. But it does mean I can let him off lead most places because as soon as I unclip the lead, he focuses on me. And is almost like ready and raring to go, oh, we're going to do something fun together. Now, obviously, this is exactly how to do it. It's stages I would go through and progress through, but you need to obviously be doing recall training at the same time. So recall situations, fun, building a bank of history. There's so many things you can do with that. So do obviously look at recall training. We do have our online Porcademy hub coming very, 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 very soon, which will have a load of recall exercises on there that you can practice with your dog. Any questions about this, drop me a message. If there's any topics you'd like us to cover on the podcast, please do let me know, because if there's something you're like, God, I'd love her to talk about this, message me and I will talk about it. But hopefully that's been useful. It will help you with transitioning from long line and focus on long line to off lead completely. And have a good week, and I'll catch up with you really soon. Thank you for listening to The Dynamic Dog Owner with me, Debbie Potter. See you next time.